In this episode of Retirement Real Talk, we're going to be looking at the differences between Medicare Advantage plans and supplemental plans so that you'll be able to decide which is best for you.
Welcome to Retirement Real Talk, where we cut through the advertisements, sales pitches, and all the confusion surrounding Medicare, Social Security, and retirement finances. Introducing the Internet's leading Medicare educator and co-founder of medicareschool.com, Marvin Music, and his son, certified financial planner and the co-founder of medicareschool.com, Joshua Music. It's time for some Retirement Real Talk.
So we've broken this episode down into 4 different parts. First, we're going to cover what is a supplemental plan, how do they work. We're going to talk about what is an Advantage plan, how do those work, what are the differences between these two options, and then the last, which I think the most important, is how to decide which one is best for you. So let's go ahead and get started. Dad, if you wouldn't mind, why don't you explain to our listeners what is a supplemental plan?
Well, when people decide to go on Medicare, one of their options is to stay in what we call the original Medicare A and B system, which means that anytime they go to a hospital or go to a doctor, Medicare is going to be the first payer. But other than preventive services, Medicare never pays anything 100%. So there's always a balance of the bill. And that balance of the bill could be a deductible, it could be a copay, it could be co-insurance, there's a variety of ways, but that balance is the insured's responsibility. And because there's such a risk there, most people don't want to be liable for those. We call those gaps. And so when someone buys a Medigap policy, also called a Medicare Supplemental Plan, they're buying that to fill in and to cover those gaps that Medicare did not pay for. So Medicare pays first, the balance is the insured's responsibility, but they can pass that liability onto an insurance company. So when they buy that policy, they're going to pay a premium, and then the insurance company will be responsible for that gap instead. And there's 10 different policies. We find that about probably 97 to 98% of all people buy one of 3. But they buy them for the purpose of having the insurance company pay those gaps for them instead of being out of pocket themselves.
Okay, so let's talk about the gaps real quick. What are, and there, I think there's 6 or 7 total, but what are the maybe top 2 or 3 that they need to be aware of that could really impact them financially? Meaning Medicare is going to pay for part of it, but there's this big gap that you would be responsible for to pay out of your own pocket unless you had a supplemental plan that would then step in and pick that up.
That's right. Yeah, there are 6 gaps. There's 3 gaps on the A and 3 gaps on the B. And really, your big responsibility on the A side is you're going to have to pay a deductible. It's not a high deductible,
and
but that deductible.
Just to clarify for people, the A side is the hospital, the inpatient hospitalization. The B, when we talk about Medicare Part B, we're talking about outpatient things, so doctor's visits, tests, labs, x-rays, outpatient surgeries, anything that would be outpatient is going to fall under the B side.
That's right.
So on the A side, you said there's a deductible.
A side, which is the inpatient side of Medicare, there's a deductible. It's not real high, but it has the possibility of occurring more than once in a year. So there's risk there. It's $1,556 right now. So if anyone goes to the hospital, whether they're in 1 day or 2 days, 10 or 60 days, up to 60, they're going to pay that $1,556 deductible. And if they're rehospitalized anytime, 2, 3, 4 months later, then they're going to pay it again.
So it's not just an annual deductible. They could pay it 2, 3, 4 times a year. So
right.
It could be, up $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 out of pocket.
That's right. Yeah, it's tied to what's called a benefit period, and so that there is a possibility that those could happen 4 or 5 times in a year.
And then on top of that, there would be, if they have an extended hospital stay, there's a daily hospital copay. And what are those numbers?
Yes. Well, right now what that means is after being in the hospital 60 continuous days, the next month, every day during that 3rd month would be $389 a day. So when you do the math, someone's in that 3rd month, it's going to cost them $12,000. And then month 4 and 5, if they're still in, of course, they're really very sick. Most people in that situation are in a coma, but it does happen. And so month 4 and month 5, it doubles to $788 a day right now. And that's basically $25,000 each month that they're going to be in the hospital. And then what happens is there's no coverage after that. And so that's why people get supplemental plans to fill in the gaps for those extended hospital stays, the deductible, as well as giving people 1 full year in the hospital at no cost after the Medicare coverage runs out. Hey, if you're finding this video helpful, I want to invite you to go right up here and actually click on a link that will allow you to watch what I call the Medicare Essentials Workshop. It's a workshop that I did that really is going to show you everything you need to know about Medicare from A to Z, how to enroll, when to enroll, and the plan options for you. So go to that link and check it out.
Okay, so let's talk about the Medicare Part B side, which is outpatient. What are the costs associated with that?
Well, Medicare B also has 3 gaps. It has a very small deductible. This year, that's $233. But the big gap on the B side is 20% coinsurance. So anything that Medicare is going to cover on the outpatient side or the doctor services, they only pay 80%. And so the insured is responsible for 20%. And the problem with that 20% is it never stops. Yeah. It's unlimited. And so that really is, I think, the overall largest financial exposure that people have on Medicare today, especially if they get ill. If they have a surgery, there's going to be a surgeon, anesthesiologist, multiple doctors they're going to see, and every one of those physicians, they're going to be responsible to pay that 20% coinsurance.
And then on top of that, there's also this thing called an excess charge, which means that any doctor out there can charge an extra 15% above whatever that Medicare approved amount is. And in that instance, that's probably on you unless you have a supplemental plan that covers that.
Exactly right.
So to kind of summarize this, the supplement plan covers all of this stuff that A and B does not cover. And the most popular plan for years was the F plan, and it basically paid everything that Medicare didn't pay. So Medicare paid their portion, F plan paid everything else. The G plan has been popular for probably 5 years now or so, and it's almost identical to the F plan, except that you have to pay the Medicare Part B deductible, which is this year $233. After you pay that deductible, it's 100% coverage after that. And the other plan that's worth mentioning here that a lot of people are getting is called an IN plan. So the IN plan is a little less benefit. Can you explain how the IN plan works?
Sure. Well, the IN plan is, of course, lower in premium, anywhere from, average about $30 you'll save versus the G plan. But you are going to take on a couple more items. The N plan, like the G plan, will not pay the B deductible, not a big expense, but most importantly, it will not pay excess charges if and when they occur. Okay. And there's still 42 states that allow doctors to charge excess. Now, the majority of doctors don't for sure, but that could change. And if Medicare will continue to keep their reimbursement rate stagnant, then we can see more and more doctors possibly adding the excess charge, and that's 15%. Anyone that goes to Mayo Clinic and some of these specialty hospitals and cancer centers, they will be billed that extra 15%. And so the implant's not going to pay that. And so that's why I'm not a real fan of it. I don't think it's a bad plan by any means, not a bad choice, but I think people have to realize excess charges can happen and they can be very, very costly. And in addition to that, when someone's on an N plan, they are subject to up to a $20 copay whenever they see a doctor. So you're taking on a little more liability, you're going to have less premium, and that's what really people have to decide. Are they comfortable with taking on that liability with the savings between the G and the N?
Sure. And in some states, it's very significant savings to get an N over G. It's almost a no-brainer, especially if your state doesn't allow excess charges. But so let's keep moving on. Let's talk about Advantage plans. So how do Advantage plans work? What do people need to be aware of as it relates to Advantage plans?
Yeah, well, Advantage plan is the second option people have to use their Medicare benefits. So this came about in 2003, and then when they approved it, and then they started in 2005. So they've been around a long time. And really, the best way to look at an Advantage plan, and to summarize it, is it's truly a replacement plan. So when
replacing what?
They're replacing original Medicare A and B. Okay. So either you're in A and B and have a supplemental plan, or you're replacing that A and B benefit with a private health insurance company's Advantage plan. And that just simply means that you are going to be given a network of providers, a schedule of copays, an annual max out of pocket. And so now this private health insurance company has put together your insurance package for you. And you pay a copay, and they're responsible for the balance. And so that's why we call it a replacement plan. And so with the Advantage plan, there's certainly going to be differences between original Medicare. So when people make this decision, they're just going to simply have to be comfortable with the way the Advantage plan is going to work versus the way the supplemental plan will work.
Okay, so at a high level, the Advantage plan is going to replace your original Medicare A and B. We actually tell people that get Advantage plans to just put that red, white, and blue Medicare card in the drawer. They're not going to use it. Medicare's not going to be billed for anything. In fact, Medicare is paying that private health insurance company to cover you. And then you, along with that insurance company, your copays and whatever they're paying will then take care of those bills. Let's move into section number 3, which is what are the differences between Advantage plans and supplement plans? Because there are several differences. Hey, if you're on Facebook, you really need to join our medicareschool.com Facebook group. And the reason I say that is you can go inside that group, and every day, my dad and I are monitoring that, and we've got a couple other people on the team, but you can go in and ask your questions. And then every Monday night, we actually do a Medicare Monday, where Marvin or myself breaks down one important topic or one important part of Medicare and just explains it to you live. You can ask questions, all that sort of good stuff. So go ahead, look up medicareschool.com on Facebook, join the group, and you won't be disappointed. Okay, so there's four main differences between these two options. The first one is understanding that the supplement plan is more of a premium-based system, meaning you're going to pay a monthly premium to that insurance company, and then they're going to pretty much take care of your bills. The Advantage plan, on the other hand, the vast majority of them don't have a premium, so you're not going to be paying a monthly premium for that plan. You still have to pay for Part A and B, or for Part B, but you're not going to pay a premium to the insurance company. Instead, it's a pay-as-you-go system. So you go see your doctor, it's cost you $5 or $10. See a specialist, maybe $30, $40, $50. Go have an MRI or a CAT scan or have an outpatient surgery. It's going to be $200, $300, $400. Spend a weekend in the hospital. You're probably going to come out with a $1,000, $1,500, $1,800 bill. So you're going to pay as you use the services, whereas the supplement plan, you kind of pay up front for the premium. The second big difference is really understanding how networks work. On a supplement plan, you are using Original Medicare as your network. There is no supplemental plan network. You don't have to worry about if you're on Aetna or United Healthcare, Blue Cross and Blue Shield, existing within that network. There is no such thing for supplement plans. As long as the doctor takes Medicare, they will bill any supplemental plan that you have. That doesn't matter. On the Advantage plan, it's definitely network-based. So there's going to be PPO plans, which means kind of a bigger group of doctors. There's going to be HMO plans, which is a smaller group of doctors. If you're on an HMO plan, you have to know that if you try to go out of that network, you can go out of network, but you're going to pay 100% of the cost for any services that you get. If you go out of network on a PPO plan, you will pay a bigger portion of the cost. And I think that portion of the cost that you have to pay is around maybe 40% of the total bill. So it's very expensive to go out of network, even if you're on a PPO Advantage plan. So you need to plan on staying within the networks if you're on an Advantage plan. The third big difference is this thing we call pre-certifications. And a pre-certification really has to do with the insurance company on an Advantage plan has the final say-so between whether or not you get to get that hip replacement or have that second opinion MRI or whatever it is. And I don't know all the stats on it. I think you're a little more up to speed on that. But a lot of the services do require pre-certifications with these Advantage plans. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Right now, the most recent report I read was 72% on average of the services that people will need on their Advantage plan are going to have to be pre-approved. And so obviously to go to doctor, their primary care doctor or specialist, that's not a pre-authorization, but anything that's expensive, an MRI, a CAT scan, outpatient surgery, an inpatient hospital stay that's non-emergency is going to have to be pre-approved. Skilled nursing stays. So lots of things are going to have to be approved by the insurance company. So just because your doctor says this is what we need doesn't mean you're going to get it. You may get it, but that insurance company has to agree with that decision of the doctor. And sometimes we'll see delays in that. I've seen people have to wait 3 to 6 weeks for an MRI approval. I had a lady 2 weeks ago that a doc said she needed a knee replacement. Advantage plan would not approve of it. We've seen several times when there was someone needed a hip replacement and Advantage plan said, no, we think therapy is necessary first, so go to therapy for 9 months and then we'll see if you really do need a hip replacement. So the point is when someone enrolls in an Advantage plan, what they're doing is giving that insurance company final say-so. Someone sits in a cubicle and has to agree and approve what the doctor is recommending.
Okay, compare that to supplemental plans then.
Sure. Well, supplemental plans do not have pre-authorizations. As a matter of fact, most supplemental cards, when they issue the insurance card, they put on there, no pre-authorization required, because they really have no say-so. Because that's the way supplemental plans work. When someone's enrolled in Original Medicare, if Medicare pays, the supplemental plan has to pay. They're going to pay the balance of the bill based upon the supplemental plan that you chose. So they don't have any say-so. Medicare pays, they'll pay. Medicare doesn't, they won't.
Okay. So pre-certifications are important. Not to say everything's going to get denied, but you have to be aware of that if you get an Advantage plan. Right. So then the fourth big difference is really understanding how switching works between these two plans. Because a lot of people think, because we're used to group insurance where it's open enrollment, we choose, do we want the high deductible plan? Do we want the plan that's got more benefits? What plan do we want? That is not how care works. So there is an annual election period. that happens every year, but you cannot just switch back between these two options. Right. So when you first go on Medicare, you have a once-in-a-lifetime right that lasts for 6 months to get any supplemental plan with no health questions asked. No, they can't deny you could be on oxygen, undergoing cancer treatment, had a car wreck yesterday, and it just doesn't matter. You are able to get that supplemental plan. But once you get beyond that 6 months, in almost all states, there's a few that have some different rules, but in almost all states, once you get past that 6 months, you have to medically qualify, meaning you have to answer a bunch of health questions, and they're going to pull your medical records to see, hey, do we want to have this person be able to get this supplemental plan? So you got to be aware of that. You can't just switch back and forth. Now, you can always get to an Advantage plan. There are no medical requirements. Every year, if you start out with a supplement plan, every year you'll have that decision, do I want to switch to the Advantage plan? But if you start with the Advantage plan, just know, you're on that, you love it 2, 3, 4 years, something changes in your health, and then you want to get over to the supplemental plan. You're going to have to medically qualify, and usually by then it's too late. Right. Because people, they always want the more premium insurance, after something's coming up. So you got to make that decision now. Okay, so let's talk about our last and final point, which is how do people really choose which one is best for them? Because these are the two options that they have.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Well, the smartest way really is to look at every option that's available and as many companies as possible. And so that's why we as a company have chosen to be independent brokers, so that we can show all those options. Yeah. But people could call each individual insurance company if they want to find out some of the particulars of their plans and look at the premiums, but they're going to have to spend a lot of time doing that. Or they could find a broker like us or someone who is able to write all the plans, or at least most of the good plans, and then make that comparison. Now, personally, here's the way I would view that. Certainly anyone that has any sort of health issues, they really ought to go, for sure with the supplemental plan, because after that 6-month window, now they're going to have to medically qualify. So this is their once-in-a-lifetime opportunity where their pre-existing conditions, be they serious or not, that insurance company has to take them. Why? Because there's no underwriting during that 6-month window. So to me, that really is a no-brainer. You have some health problems, you ought to start with a supplemental plan.
And you always have the option to switch to an Advantage down the road.
Yeah.
But this might be your only option, I think is what you're saying. This might be your only opportunity to get a supplemental plan if you have underlying health issues, if you've had an AFib incident or,
rheumatoid arthritis. Yeah. There's things, an insulin-dependent diabetic that has any form of complication will never qualify after that 6-month window. And so there's some health issues that are not life or death, but they're serious enough where the insurance company says, we're not going to write this policy. And they're not required to by law, and they're not going to. But they have to when you first take that Medicare Part B during that 6-month window. So that really is the time to buy that. So if someone decides that they would like to do an Advantage, I would suggest a PPO versus an HMO just because of the restrictions. Sometimes they have to have a referral. The only way they can go out of network is emergency room or an urgent care situation. So that's very restricted. We have found times when it's difficult in an HMO network to find a lot of skilled nursing facilities. And so you are going to have restrictions. So I'm uncomfortable with that. Mm-hmm. People do go with HMOs because they have lower max out-of-pockets and they have lower copays, but they are going to have those restrictions. So if they do go with an Advantage plan, do a PPO. But I would say that everyone has to be really aware that once they get on that Advantage plan, if they do decide they want to switch to a supplemental plan, it can't be at the time when you are ill. You're going to have to do that in advance because that insurance company has every right to say no to you.
So we're gonna paint with a very broad brush here, but let's make some general statements to help people kind of sort into which of these two may be the best. So if having a really big network of doctors and almost a totally unlimited amount of doctors is very important to you, your supplemental plan is probably going to be the better way to go. If, on the other hand, you're fine, hey, I've got my doctors and hospitals I want to go to, and this Advantage plan has them all in network and I'm never going to want to go beyond that, then an Advantage plan may be a fine option for that. Talking about premiums. So if it is not in the budget to pay the $100, $150 a month for a supplemental plan, then the Advantage plan is a great option. We've seen time and time again where people are going, hey, I want the supplemental plan. It seems to be better, more comprehensive coverage, all that stuff. But it's making them insurance poor, or they can't, pay the premium, or, it's just putting too much of a strain on them. The Advantage plan is a really good for those people.
I think another issue would be the prescription drug plan. if people are taking a lot of medications, they're going to find that if they have a supplemental plan, they can add a drug plan that's separate that they chose, the pharmacy they want to go to. If we have an Advantage plan, the prescription drug plan is part of the package. It's embedded. And so what's happened is that insurance company has chosen your plan for you. And frankly, it could be very good and it could be mediocre. And so that's another difference between those two, depending on how you want to get your medications and how much say-so you want in that plan.
Yeah. Now, one of the, I think the downsides of supplemental plans is going to be the lack of perks that exist. So Advantage plans right now, and I say for the last few years, have been getting a lot of government funding. Hopefully that continues, but basically they've been able to throw in a lot of perks into these plans, like dental and vision and hearing and free gym memberships. You can go to the YMCA or your community center or this or that. So a lot of those things are thrown into Advantage plans, which are really nice, as compared to the supplemental plan is more like pure health insurance. Right? And so you have to spend an extra few dollars to go get a dental plan and all that sort of thing. So if premium savings, monthly premium savings is the most important thing, then a lot of times people will head towards the Advantage plan. But you have to understand the Advantage plan isn't free. You're still going to be paying for virtually all of the medical services that you're going to receive. And sometimes that can get very expensive.
Yeah, there's a few items that are zero, but the great majority, you're going to participate with some kind of, it's a very reasonable copay. But when someone has a serious illness and cancer, almost everyone maxes out on cancer. I had a lady max out recently $6,700 on cancer, and her cancer treatment carried into the next year, and she maxed out again within a few months. Anyone who gets seriously ill, I would venture to say they are going to spend more money out of pocket on their Advantage than what someone would on a supplemental plan. And if someone has no health problems, they certainly saved a lot of money by being on the Advantage.
Yeah.
But,
if you were in perfect health, we'd all buy Advantage plans. And if we knew we were going to be in perfect health forever, we'd all buy Advantage plans.
Yeah.
And again, Advantage plans aren't bad. They're just different. You have to understand the difference of these. And then you got to just make that choice. And if you need help making that choice, our team would love to help you. Every month we help about 1,000 people get enrolled into either Advantage plans or supplement plans. We have really no bias one way or the other. It really depends on what's important to you, what makes sense for your budget, what makes sense for your health conditions, and then just help you find the best option amongst these two camps.
Yeah.
So.
And the good thing about independent brokers like us is that we truly are unbiased. Yeah. The plans all pay the same as far as supplemental plans and Advantage plans. Of course, they pay more, and that's why a lot of agents push those. But with our firm, now really anyone that's going to be ethical will show you both options.
Yeah.
People who just want to push Advantage plan, they're chasing a commission, which is wrong to do. We feel like we owe our clients the opportunity to be able to hear about both, and then you decide what's going to be best for you, and then make that decision, not based upon how much we make. And I also want to add that when you decide to work with any agent, there's no cost to you because the insurance agent is always paid by the insurance company. So we really do come free to our clients, as any agent's going to. There's no cost at all. So I just encourage people to be sure that they're dealing with someone that has a good reputation, is very experienced in this business, and it really cares about coverage, not about commission.
Right.
Just really in conclusion, I think what matters is that people need to understand that this is a big decision because it could be for life. Right? And so when we make these decisions, you don't just look at premium, we got to look at the details of these plans. We don't buy a plan just because of some celebrity advertising it on TV that only tells half the story, right? So we do want to look at the details to make sure we are very comfortable and have confidence in the choice that we've made.